Hello, and welcome back to Fantasy Turf 4, the ultimate showdown where 64 teams battle head-to-head for fantasy football glory. This is episode 32, and I'm your host, Lauren Hill, and with me are two righteous dudes. Sorry. What? Okay. Matt, Ane, and Cory Bassett.
It's
Please
a movie
introduce yourself.
reference. Anybody get the movie reference?
I
Righteous
think
dude.
I
No.
think a
Righteous
lot of people
dude.
are a little too young for that, but it's fine.
It's fine.
This is
It's
why
fine.
you read the script before,
Yep.
because what was that? All right. Anyway, Matt, introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'm gonna be your fantasy analytic guy today, and I'm really excited for the good show. You can find me on Twitter X, whatever you call it these days, at Matthew_Ane. Yeah, it's gonna be a good one.
Yep, and I'm Commissioner Cory, putting movie references into the script, unbeknownst to everyone else. Comment in the chat in the thread if you got the movie reference, so that he's a righteous dude. And
Don't make fun of him.
I'm just gonna
Actually,
add
say
the
you
movie to your
don't
list,
understand.
Lauren. It's fine. But yeah, I'm pushing
Say
buttons
you
in the
just
back.
don't.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
All right. Thank you for that. So now before we get started, we're trying to do something new here. So if you like this idea of a 64 team league, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Your support is crucial to keeping this show going, and it means the world to us. Plus, we have contests lined up once we hit 100 subscribers, so you won't want to miss out on that. And I believe Cory has a couple quick announcements. So, Cory.
Sure do. Just very quickly. If it looks like we haven't changed outfits since last night's show, that's because we haven't. We have been forced to stay in this office. No, just kidding. The episode has been pre-recorded. We mentioned it last night that I will be traveling to Anaheim for the weekend, so we have stayed behind and recorded this episode just to make sure that we got the content out to everyone who's doing drafts. And yeah, just want to make sure we had it there. And there haven't been too many significant changes in the league. If there are, they'd have made their way through social media. So we're just going to jump right into the content. Back to you, Lauren.
All right, so tonight we dive into the vast realm of wide receivers as we get straight to the top 10 list. So we just did 20-11, and now we're gonna do 10-1. So without further ado, Matt, who's
All
at the
right.
top of the list?
So these are the guys that are all questioning: should they be drafted in the first round? Should I be, worried about these guys? What should I do? And to start off, we're going to open up with Devontae Adams of the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, this one is going to be a guy that I'm going to say pass on every time. I don't like the team. I don't like who's throwing him the ball. I don't like the opportunities that are going to be rolling around there. So when it comes to Devontae Adams last year, even though he had a nice finish, it came in spurts. It wasn't really consistent. When he was really bad, he was atrocious. And when he was really good, he was really good. But unfortunately, it didn't come in times where it was really needed, except during the playoffs. Except if you were relying on him in week 16 to get in the championship, you absolutely got flopped and he finished with under a point. So that's the kind of volatility you're going to have. You can have a 37-point week, or you can have a 0.9 week. And when it comes to Devontae Adams being the 10th wide receiver off the board, and your wide receiver one, and pretty much early second round pick, you're going to go, okay, cool, yeah, no, and just pass and move on. There is better options that are more consistent at other positions or at the same position. So Devontae Adams is an outright bust this year. So just keep it moving.
All right. Well, so he had a lot of negative things to say about the Raiders, so Matt is no longer with us.
Well, he's gone.
I'm kidding. No, I unfortunately I agree that as a Raiders fan and as a fantasy player, right? Like he is frustrating to watch because he's got the talent. He's had productive systems, not now with Raiders, but he did before with Derek Carr. Like they had all the pieces they need there. Something is not clicking on the Adams front, and I'm not for it. As a fan of the Raiders, as a fantasy manager, player, whatever, I don't see it, and I'm quite frustrated by Devonte Adams. So as much as it pains me to say him, also a huge pass to where I would almost consider some of the folks we talked about on the last episode before I start talking about Devonte Adams, which is it's honestly it's a Catholic guilt thing, right? I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, and that's worse.
Oh, wow. You hit the Devontae with that.
The problem is that he was a Packer, and that's what ruined him. And then
Uh-huh.
so that's it.
I think that's just your own personal bias there. But
Eh.
see, actually, so before this episode, I took notes of my one through 10, and I wrote actually in this section, ask for Corey's opinion, and then I also drew a little doodle of what I depicted him to look like during this section.
Oh, she
This
actually
is
drew it.
him.
Oh Jesus,
This is him.
great! That's getting clipped.
That's him. Um, yeah, so no hate, no shade. I do think that
Wait, is that me or Devonte
um
Adams? There's a
oh,
difference
that's
here.
you, buddy. That's all
Oh,
you.
crap.
That's you when we talk about Devonte Adams because he's hurt your feelings. But
Yeah.
personally, he's going into his 11th season. We talked about somebody in the 20 through 11 section that's entering his 11th season, Mike Evans, who I think is so much better of a pick than Devonte Adams is. He's already 31. I don't know. I think he had his time on the Packers and then he tried to continue to win more. And I wouldn't feel safe drafting Devonte Adams basically.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because you brought up Mike Evans, and he was one of the people I was thinking about when I said, from the previous episode, in where Mike Evans, you can justify picking him up because he's earned the trust, to where like, hey, the floor's there, he's going to produce, you feel good about it. It's almost the exact
Mhm.
opposite with Devonte Adams. We're like, hey, look, it's been so volatile, so inconsistent. I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, kind of thing. So it is interesting, and I think the ADP is not going to reflect that, but I would be very hesitant to pick up Adams if I had to.
Yeah, I mean, like if there was a better quarterback behind center, like that would be like where I'd just be like, okay, cool. Like there might be some upside, even though the team could be bad because, you know, bad teams with bad defenses usually, churn out good fantasy production for wide receivers because then they're forced to throw the ball. But Gardner Minshew, even though he's a slinger, and it's probably the best scenario of having a terrible quarterback. It just the line doesn't do it for me. Things like that, just a lot of things that can go wrong where I just don't think they're going to be successful in both passing or rushing at this point. But
Yeah, and
you
that's
know,
a that's a good point too. Is that they to at least the time of recording, they haven't named a starter in Las Vegas, so you don't actually know if it is Minshew or not, and that's part of the uncertainty that just towards the draft.
yeah, I mean, like, God forbid they decide to go with like Aiden O'Connell or Anthony Brown Jr. Then they're going for the number one pick, and then truly, 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 just forget about all your hopes of Devontae Adams. But anyway, we're gonna move on because as much as I like making Corey uncomfortable about his team, we need to talk about
No,
Marvin
I'm
Harrison
crying.
Jr. He
You're
totally
crying.
is.
Yeah.
uh, we are going to talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. of the Arizona Cardinals, and this is a rookie sensation. Should be a slam dunk pick, but the price is a lot. And essentially, what you're going to do when you're picking him at the number 9 wide receiver off the board, pick 16 overall, is you're pretty much saying, hey, he literally is a wide receiver one. Now, the thing about wide receiver ones is you look at like a Jamar Chase or any other bona fide stud wide receiver, and they never just step in and just are fantastic. Yes, the likelihood of Harrison doing it is pretty high, especially with nobody else being on the team to kind of supplant him or kind of gobble up any of the targets except for Trey McBride. Nobody's scared of Dorchich or Michael Wilson or even Zach Pascal or Zay Jones. Like none of these guys are going to be somebody that's going to take any kind of targets away from him. And we all know what Kyler Murray can do when he had like a DeAndre Hopkins in there. And you look at what DeAndre did that one year where they both were healthy and you look at where like he had 230 fantasy points and he had 160 targets, 115 receptions, and 1,400 yards with 6 touchdowns. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go and say that he's going to have a Puka Nakua season because that's unlikely. But could he have a strong second half? Absolutely. But are you willing to go and the gamble on a guy that is going to have a lot of unknowns. Yes, he has the prospect pedigree of being in the college perennial top wide receiver with 1,200 yards and 14 touchdowns at Ohio State. Sure, but again, this is the NFL. This is a different thing. So just remember, this is the most riskiest but most rewarding pick. And I just don't know if I'm really feeling the pick. So just be cautious when you're doing it, and just know that, especially when you're drafting Marvin Harrison Jr., you're just looking like this. It's a very risky pick, and you're pretty much you're going to put your whole season at risk if he flops. So you just know you may have to be patient, and with a pick that high, you literally gamble the whole season. So if you like gambling, pick Marvin Harrison Jr.
Lauren, what you got?
I don't have too much of an opinion on him, honestly. He's a rookie, so there you can't really form too much of an opinion. No stats to base it on. I mean, there's always one of these every year where you're just like, are you excited or are you scared to draft him? And sometimes it ends up being really good and sometimes it ends up being really bad. Personally, I don't want to take that risk, especially in this league that we're playing. So I'm staying away from Mr. Marvin Harrison Jr. But basically, without any stats to base it off of, obviously, since he is a rookie, his rookie season, personally, with the league that we're in for fantasy turf war, I wouldn't draft him because I like to feel security in that in that first wide receiver one slot. And he doesn't give me that. But if, like Matt said, if you're into gambling, go for it. I think if he ends up being an awesome pick, you could end up be it great in your league because of him. But I just don't. I'm a little scaredy cat in these kind of situations. So
Fair enough, and it's an interesting situation that he's in, right? Because he has a lot of hype to live up to. Because obviously he's coming in ranked number 9. Um, there's some expectations there that he's got to deliver for his team, and I don't think he cares about fantasy necessarily, but there's some expectations there. Also, he's his father's legacy. He's got to live up to that too. So like, there's a lot to live up there expectation wise, and you don't know how people are going to do under that kind of pressure. And then, of course, you have all the unknown quantities with a rookie season. What's his chemistry like with Kyler Murray? Is he going to be able to get into the system and be effective, kind of thing? So there is a lot of hesitancy on my part. I do like him. I would wonder if he is on the board and all the folks from yesterday are on the board. Are you passing on him for in lieu of someone else?
Oh, well, I guess it would be more of, I think I'd probably go to a different position than kind of roll with him. So like around that pick, like you have a Kyron Williams, you have you know, like running backs that are kind of still in the game that I could probably get that I think are a little bit more of like a solid floor and worth the draft pick. Because at this point in the draft, you look at it, and you go, okay, I am risking my whole season, and
Yeah.
you can't win your league at the draft, but you can lose your league at the draft.
Yeah.
And having the volatility of Marvin Harrison Jr. can totally help you lose the league as fast.
Yeah, I mean, coming in ranked 9. I mean, you're talking what's the actual position on the draft?
16th overall.
So yeah, I mean, you're potentially talking about like your number 1 pick as a team, depending on what your league format is. That's a lot of pressure to put on your own team, and that's not a risk I think I'd be willing to take if I can help it.
I agree.
All right. So next guy up on the docket, right? Let's keep it moving here, and we got Mr. Garrett Wilson of the New Jets, and this one's another one, a little bit on the risky side as well. I mean, obviously, you know, we're all praying that him and Aaron Rodgers can totally take the step forward. A little bit of the hard knocks hype from last year can kind of carry over and kind of do things. Garrett Wilson also was still able to finish as the 32nd wide receiver last year with a terrible quarterback, still had 95 receptions, and just had 1,000 yards, which was fantastic. But the touchdown numbers is really what the killer part was. He only had 3 on the season. And, that's kind of the difference maker, because with that kind of elite reception numbers and elite target numbers, usually if a guy had like 8 or 9 touchdowns, they're a wide receiver 1 at this point. So like we've seen him do, the first half, but the part that gets him over to the finish line is the touchdowns. And you would hope that with Rodgers taking a step forward and hopefully recovered, that we're going to see this along with Brees Hall being able to kind of lighten up the load as well. The Jets should be a good offense and defense. They have a great offensive line, unlike last year. So like there is a lot of things going for this. Now there is still a risk. He still hasn't been the super elite receiver that we all wanted. We don't know the status of Aaron Rodgers, truthfully, and these are all things that you just got to quantify when taking him. He is honestly, you look at what his ADP is right now, and he is the 14th player off the board. So that's like end of the first, beginning of the second, depending on your league format. And just know, like I actually don't mind scooping him up at that point, but at the same time, it is risky. I had a lot of Garrett Wilson, and all you need to do is have Aaron Rodgers roll out with the flag in the opposite hand in the third play in the game, and there goes his Achilles. So you just gotta take that risk and just pray that it all works out.
I like the references there. I think
hmm
from my end, I am big on the systems of Arizona and Baltimore this year, and I would say a close third would probably be the Jets, just because they have enough pieces together. I think that they're going to be effective. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to win a Super Bowl or anything like that, but they're going to be fun to watch. And I think that Garrett Wilson is probably on track for a pretty good year. Another one of those risks at the level you're going to pay for him. I might try and change how I draft if I had to look at this kind of option. But he's got a high target share, and I think he's got a very good growth potential. So I think he ends up at the end of the year higher than where he starts right now at 8. So I probably have him probably closer to the top 6, maybe top 5. Just depends on how the season goes. But I think there's some good potential there. So I wouldn't feel too bad. But I would, depending on the league format, I might change up the draft there too.
Yeah, I agree. I think the stats that he put up last year gives breathing room for what he can do this year. Again, it's just a bunch of like what ifs are going to happen. Are him and Aaron Rodgers going to connect? Is Aaron Rodgers going to tear his Achilles in the first 50 seconds again? Or yada, yada, yada. A lot of what ifs. But I do agree with what Cory said. I do think he's going to end up further down this list than he is at right now. Granted, because again, this is his third year. He's 24 years old. There's a lot of room for improvement. There's also room for decreased progression, I guess, for everybody. But I like him. Would I draft him as my first choice? Probably not. Or would I be confident in having him as my number one choice? Sure, but is he the one that I want and like think about? No, that's this next person. I
So
I love this next person.
I also wanted to clarify too. When you said he finishes at the end of the year down the list, do you mean closer to number 1, right?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Closer to number one. That's what I meant.
Okay.
All right. So since Lauren is so excited about Puka Nakua, we might as well talk about him. And
Just fun to say.
yeah,
I love him.
yeah. See, I always think of Pokemon, Pikachu, but you know,
Mm,
um,
that's what I thought when I first saw his name.
yeah. So he's coming off the board as the 13th overall player, and he's in a great Rams offense, obviously. But there's some news that came out about Puka. He hurt his knee, for starters, and the quote from Sean McVay is just a little bit of a bursa sack. I don't understand what that means. It's going to be week to week with him. Nothing serious, nothing structurally. So it's good news, but it's also bad news. So a knee injury, is something that can linger, can cause other soft tissue issues. If you have a bad knee, it can cause obviously some issues with your lower back. It can cause some hamstring issues, things that can linger all year. And when it comes to soft tissue, that's usually what hurts wide receivers at any kind of skill position. You just don't want to see it happen. But Puka Nakua was absolutely fantastic. He's one of those guys that doesn't need, touchdowns essentially to be successful for fantasy, right? Like he's kind of more of like a Julio Jones, right? Julio Jones never exceeded 7 touchdowns in a season. Maybe he had 8 one year, but would turn around and have like 150, 170, even 200-yard games and just be absolutely incredible, like a boatload of receptions. And that's pretty much Puka Nakua at this point. Him and Matthew Stafford just had Whereas the touchdowns are probably going to go more Cooper Kupp's way as long as he can stay healthy, right? Like him and Cooper just have this like sync that whatever the magic is in the red zone is going to Cooper Kupp. Now, can Puka take a step forward? Absolutely. I'm big on him. I was good up until the knee injury, drafting him at this position. I think he falls now to more of a wide receiver 2, and we kind of get a discount on him. And I'm totally good with that. You tell me that I got to be patient a couple weeks, and maybe he's not like Puka Nakua's, or he misses week 1, and then I got him for the rest of the season, but I got him in round 2 versus round 1. Yeah, I'm still a happy boy. I'm still gonna pick him. So if my draft is today, I'm avoiding him and praying he falls. Um, if my draft is in 3 weeks, I think the price will be just right. So be wary, pay attention to ADP, and watch him fall down to an affordable price.
Yeah, it's a great point. So, just to update to the knee situation. So it's a bursitis of the bursa sacs, which is just in all of your joints. You've got this fluid that helps move your joints more freely, and it's just that fluid is inflamed, and so it is a big concern going into a season. That's something you'd expect to show up later on from just like a wear and tear kind of thing. So having to go into a season where that's going to have to be managed to where he can't be over stressed before the season starts, and then a week to week basis, not significant enough to where he's probably going to miss any time, but it's just one of those things that you've got to pay attention to. Will probably be one of those always listed as questionable, and then the Sunday morning comes and he's just always removed off the list just because it has to be managed and it has to be reported. I was the same thing. I would have been all in on Puka, but the knee concerns going into a season, I'm not very big on. Something's just telling me kind of a red flag there. But talent's there, systems there. He could be great if he could stay healthy.
So you literally just gave my Julio Jones comp even more of a good comp. So the guy
Yeah,
that was always questionable, never scored touchdowns, and always had some kind of lingering injury that he played through. Got it. Julio
yep.
Jones.
I had Julio Jones for several years too, but
Don't
Go ahead,
talk,
Lauren.
talk bad. Don't talk bad about my man. That's no longer my man because he left. But that's, um, yeah. I'm gonna be so honest with y'all. I didn't know there was a knee injury going on. I
it's
didn't know
recent.
this. Okay,
Um,
I was like,
yeah.
I didn't know about that. I was doing my notes today, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. He excites me. Obviously, the year that he had last year is incredible. It being his second year, again, it's everybody's question of, is he going to do what he did last year, or is he going to be better, or is he going to be worse? Um, Now with a knee injury, I'm a little less confident about the fact that he can put up um, the exact amount and if more stats that he did last year. Do I think you should count him out though? Not at all. I think you should do what Matt said and be updating yourself on ESPN on just a quick Google maybe before your draft takes place. Do a quick who's questionable recently, little Google. But I mean, I would not be sad whatsoever if he was in my wide receiver 1 slot.
Hey, buddy. All right. We got Mr. AJ Brown of the Philadelphia. I was going to say Phillies. I still got baseball on the mind. It's Eagles. And, AJ Brown usually is rocking and rolling, and he is really reliant on the team's ebbs and flows because when the Eagles decided to fall off the face of the planet and take their ugly looking offense and make it that much worse, you saw it directly affect AJ Brown. After week 11, after the bye week when they came back, they just really weren't the same. I guess they had a little bit of a tougher schedule playing Kansas City and Buffalo, but went out against Dallas and San Francisco and had good games, and that's where he really strided. But then you look at the rest of the season against Seattle, the Giants, Arizona, and the Giants again, he really didn't perform. You see weeks like wide receiver 92, wide receiver 26, wide receiver 37, 31, 44, 193. And you're just like, well, the 193 is week 18. We don't care. But ultimately, you look at this and you go, okay, let's see what's going on with the Eagles offense. And everything I'm seeing is more positive, right? You shouldn't have any drama between, Sirianni and the offensive coordinator anymore, because you heard there was a lot of locker room issues. The offensive coordinator would call a play, Sirianni would be like, "Nah, bro," and then Hurts would be like, "Yeah, nah, to bro to you. I'm doing what I want." And we clearly see that Jalen Hurts isn't intelligent enough to call plays. But he is a good football player and he can get AJ Brown the ball. So as long as the offensive rolling, AJ Brown is worth this pick. I think he's officially solidified himself as a first round talent. If I'm walking away with him in the first round, I'm pretty happy. It's just more towards the end of the first round, but I'm still pretty excited. Great offense, great opportunities going to be coming there. And again, if they got their stuff together, AJ Brown should have his stuff together.
Yeah, I'm good with AJ Brown this year. I'm so glad it was muted when it goes to just your shot, because I was picking up your jokes, so I was thoroughly laughing my butt off. Sorry, YouTube. Um, yeah, for me, I think the only concern I have is occasionally he might have a quiet game or two. But other than that, you're talking a guy with high volume, high target share. Frequently gets targeted in the red zone, so I have no concerns with AJ Brown. I'm not as anti Eagles. I almost said Phillies too. I'm not as anti Eagles as Matt is, but I think I feel much better with him than I would with some of the folks we talked about early. Definitely above Devonte Adams, and I would probably pick Puka over him if there was not a knee concern.
I agree. Honestly, and did everybody catch the fact that Matt was throwing mad shade at the Eagles? Just want to let that be said. I agree. I've had AJ Brown on fantasy teams before, and he hasn't let me down. He's a very consistent um, point producer in fantasy, and I say if you have the opportunity to get him, and you're drafting pretty like I guess mid region in your draft, then yeah, I would go for it.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's talk about this next dude here. Mr. Amon-Ra St. Brown, honestly, the serial killer of the NFL. This dude, if he was a defensive player, I would be even more scared. Luckily, he plays offense, because then I think he decks everybody. So, Amon-Ra St. Brown, if you don't know anything about the guy's personality, he literally has everybody that's drafted ahead of him on a board with like probably a dart in their head. He is very, very upset he wasn't drafted higher. He said he's going to be the number one wide receiver. And I even think he gets mad at his Madden rankings. So just ultimately just be scared of him. If you see him on the street, go to the other side, because he probably will murder you, even if you think that he's not as good as Justin Jefferson. But ultimately, he is a really good fantasy player. Let me get serious now, right? Um, he had a fantastic season, 164 targets, 119 receptions, 1,515 yards, and he had 10 touchdowns. This dude is an absolute beast. As scary as a behemoth of a man he is, he's also an incredible wide receiver on a great offense that I think Detroit is going to take another step forward and be even better than last year. So Amon-Ra St. Brown should take a serious step forward. I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes as a wide receiver one. I'm kind of banking on it. And him coming off the board as number 8 overall, I feel is kind of like a stellar price, after the CD Lambs and the Justin Jeffersons, who I don't believe in. We'll get into the ranking of that one, because I'll save that for that part. And whatnot. I feel like Amon Ra is probably actually the safest outside of Tyreek Hill from, 1 to 5 at this point in terms of wide receivers. And I'll get into all of that coming up.
Yeah, I am down with Amon Ra St. Brown. Like you said, he's as much heat as he gets for what he says about not getting drafted higher and all that stuff, though. But that just goes to his work ethic, right? Like, he is determined to be better and consistently prove himself, and I think that's great in a receiver. I also think he has a very high likelihood of finishing the year as the number one receiver in the league. He's got a natural chemistry with Goff, so I'm not worried there. And he's got the volume, he's got the hands, he's good. So I think if you picked him up, you would be very comfortable, and you'd be enjoying your return on your draft investment at the end of the year.
Sorry, I'm still thinking about how Matt was like, if you would see him across the street, he may kill you. He may kill you.
You're not even allowed to think of a bad thing about him. He will. It's mine.
He will see you making eye contact, and that's a threat.
Mhm.
I think for him being at 5, he's a great option. Obviously, I think he's a very steady option. You're gonna get the points that you want out of him, and the fact that like he gives like his personality is very much obviously not comparable in the sense of like the outcome, but Antonio Brown in the sense of like I am that guy kind of thing. And I think that's a good person to have on your team, but it also could be awful just depending on season that they have because we've seen that attitude go sour many of times. Um, but I mean, I think he's a great choice. Again, me saying that though, having the attitude, I think it's a good thing because you know he's going to strive to be that number one slot um, by the end of the year. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yep. And let's stop talking about him because I'm gonna start dreaming about him and I'm gonna end up in cold sweats. So yeah,
Nightmares.
yeah. All right. So Jamar Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals has my boy Joe Burrow smoking a stove and throwing the ball just in complete style, right? And Jamar Chase should benefit from him finally back and not being hurt all season long. And he still had a fantastic season even with the ups and downs and the turmoil of that team. Still had 1,216 yards, had 7 touchdowns, and you know was exact didn't live up to the top 5 pick, but I think this year he's going to be worth a first round pick. Where he's being picked, I think you're picking him more on the fact that he will have a number one wide receiver pick versus, hey, do you think he's going to finish at this thing at the number 5 wide receiver? Obviously, there is the ceiling play where he can finish as the number one because we've all seen what he can do, especially his rookie season where he had like 1,455 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns. Like there is that abilities. But one thing I will say is the reason why I like T. Higgins this year is because it's going to be a contract year and he's going to be playing for a deal. So with that, I think he's going to be trying to eat monsters so he can go out and get paid. And I think that might, play a little bit onto what Jamar Chase is going to do, but it also could create, more of a benefit as well. So I think that Jamar Chase, yes, is fantastic. A little volatile. I still think that Amon Ra will finish higher than him. I have it ranked so in my rankings, but I do love Jamar Chase. I feel he's a safe pick in terms of this, just not the safest.
Yeah, when you start talking about athletes who are going into contract years, I get a little weary just because you don't know what's going to happen. But I agree. Jamar Chase has got a lot of upside, though. With Burrow behind him, and I think I'm okay with it. I think I'm more excited about Amon-Ra St. Brown than I am Jamar Chase, but I could also see a scenario where he ends up number one.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of opinion on Jamar Chase. Again, I've had him in the league before. He's done me good. He's also done me dirty. So I think he's become more reliable. I had him during his first season, so it was like not my favorite time, but with him being back with Joe Burrow being healthy again, their connection is comparable as many people like to compare them to nowadays Mahomes and Kelsey. There's actually an interview I saw of someone talking to Joe Burrow and being like, "Do you think your relationship with Jamar Chase is better than Mahomes and Kelsey?" And he was like, "If you ask them the same question, they would say yes." So yeah, he's just so like I don't give two f's about anything, but he gets the job done most of the time without injury. So, I mean, I think yeah, like Matt said, Jamar Chase is a safe option. Obviously, these top 5 are going to be a safe option without impending injury. Obviously, um, would he be my top choice out of the top 5? No, but I do think he's a good option.
Yeah. Uh, you know, all great points, solid first round pick. You could feel good about walking away. Now, this next guy here is actually probably the most unsafe pick of the whole draft, and that's Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota
Yeah.
Kings. Yes, he's absolutely incredible. Probably one of the best perennial talents I've seen in a long time. I'm a huge fan. The biggest issue I have with him is he either is going to have Sam Darnold throw him the ball, which as of right now he's leading in the league, leading in the quarterback room, or Jay McCarthy, who I have a lot of holes in. I'm going to poke a lot of holes in about a second on him, but ultimately either outcome not good for him. He's also coming off the injury, so it's just not great. Now let's break down the quarterback play. Sam Darnold is an absolute bust. Got drafted really high and really sucked really quick. So yeah, I'm not a fan of him. And if he's the starting quarterback, you're going to see a lot of down games for him. They're going to be, just not good. The ball is not going to move. We've seen what he did in Carolina. I don't think we're going to see much different here. JJ McCarthy, right? The unknown, the rookie. And he played for Michigan. I watched a lot of Michigan, and he was in a hardball offense. And you really didn't get to see his arm. When he threw the ball, it was accurate and precise, but it was a little bit more of like one of those like gun out shots that like really wasn't like impressing me. You didn't get to see a lot of the over shoulders, a lot of things that really kind of like you can kind of tip your hat to and be like, okay, this kid's got a good arm and good accuracy and things like that. So, when it comes to a guy like this that kind of uses more of his legs and in those regards, it kind of feels like the production for Jefferson is going to come down, and the likelihood of a rookie receiver to support a wide receiver one is unlikely. I think it's barely happened in history. If anything, the only guy that's going to benefit from this is TJ Hawkinson when he comes back. So I look at this as a complete downgrade. I don't want to touch Justin Jefferson at this price. I would only touch him if he fell into like the third round. So Justin Jefferson for me is going to be a bust because of where he's being drafted, because of the receiver or the talent. It is just the price.
Honestly, I agree. I have personal beef actually with Justin Jefferson. I last year, so I've been playing fantasy football for I think this is my 7th or 8th year. I've never had a first round pick. I have never dreamed of it. I've never like had the opportunity. I got it last year and I was like, what do I do? I've never been given this much.
But
Um, no, see, I did, yeah, but like then I didn't know, so I did have that, but like I was more aware last year than I was the first year I played. Um, but I drafted Justin Jefferson last year first in the first round, and it came back to absolutely smother me and kill me, because it just wasn't his year, with the stats that Matt said. Again, he missed many games with an injury. Um, I don't know. I just like he hurt. I have trust issues now. So personally, you go for it. Draft Justin Jefferson. But me, I'm good. I've
yeah,
been I've been smoked.
I'm gonna clip that out too. So for Justin Jefferson too, right? You have to go back to what we're talking about, right? Is receivers, and what are receivers dependent on is a quarterback. And I couldn't tell you. You said McCarthy. I was like, who the hell is that? I mean, I don't know who that is, but so Sam Darnold, if he does take the starting job, I've seen him in Carolina. Did not like him. I'm all good on Vikings. I'm good there. Don't trust the offense. I do think Hawkinson does. If there is someone to pick up, that's the one to benefit from all this. Other than that, I'm a little surprised. Jefferson's still going number 3. We pulled the rankings. What was it, Monday? Um, what was it, Monday, August 5th, maybe a 6th, something like that. So still got a few weeks out from regular season. So I wonder if he stays number 3 going into the actual week 1. I would not be surprised if he drops down to 6. I just don't see the productivity there, and I don't see it getting a whole lot better when you're still talking about Darnold behind there. So, or McCarthy. I don't think either one's going to serve him well. So I would avoid this one if you can help it.
Amen. Love it. I kind of want to move in this next guy here. This is the safe wide receiver you could draft in the draft. That's Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins. The dude literally only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks out of 18 weeks where he did not finish as a wide receiver one. Let me say that again. 6 weeks where he did not finish as a wide receiver one, and at that, he only had 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks where he did not finish as a wide receiver, where he finished as a wide receiver 3, and 1 week where he finished as wide receiver 37. Everything else was 1, 3, 3, 1, 4, 2, 2, 3, 20, and 12. Okay. This dude is awesome. We all know who he is. He's in a fast paced offense. Tyreek Hill is incredible. And I'm going to say it right now. If he's not the first wide receiver off the board for you and somebody decided to pick CD Lamb, we'll get into that next. You just won the lottery on that one. And it's just like he's the cheat code of Christian McCaffrey of the wide receiver position. Tyreek Hill is just awesome. The only thing stopping that dude is getting hurt, knock on wood. He is a home run pick every single time. My pick, my number one wide receiver going into this year.
Yeah, it goes back to the rankings thing that we had just mentioned with the last guy. So I'm intrigued that he was not number one on the board from Fantasy Pros. That's where we got our rankings from. Um, I don't have a lot of negative to say. I think when you're talking offenses, that you have him and Waddle are both viable candidates to put up fantasy numbers. You're talking about a lethal offense, and that's going to be production numbers and volume for both people involved. And so I'm good with Tyreek Hill. I'll save the feedback on CeeDee Lamb, but I am questioning why he is not the number one receiver over CeeDee Lamb. But yeah, I love me some Tyreek Hill as a Dolphin, not a Chief.
Yeah. No, I mean, and here's the thing, right? Like, you look at it, and we could just hop into it. I'll kind of blend this whole thing. Unless, oh, I'm sorry, Lauren. I was supposed to let you go.
No. I was gonna blend in CD Lamb, so go for it.
Okay. So like the whole thing is like the comparison is between, how many weeks did Tyreek Hill just consistently finish as a number one wide receiver versus CeeDee Lamb. And here's the thing, right? So CeeDee Lamb has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks of not finishing as a wide receiver one. And in those times too, he has not had as many top six performances, whereas Tyreek Hill has. It's just he's had so many blow up games where he had like 227-yard game. He had a 191-yard game, 158-yard game, a 143-yard game. He also had, more touchdowns than he did. You just look at it, okay, is this completely repeatable, right? Has CeeDee Lamb done this as long? What is the offense going to look like? Do you believe in the Cowboys? And that's the thing. Like CeeDee Lamb has only really been this fantastic where he finishes the wide receiver one time. Tyreek Hill has done it a few times and also finishes whether it's the 1, 2, or 3 every single year. Whereas I think CeeDee Lamb is still getting into it. And also too, are you buying into the offense? Dallas, they were able to still be successful even with the offensive line issues going into the year, and you know they were able to play through that and be good. It's just I still just I feel comfortable more with CD Lamb with not CD Lamb with Tyreek Hill at this point. Plus the whole point where he's doing a sit in and he's not actually practicing; he's waiting on the deal. If this starts progressing into going into the third week of like where we're in the last preseason game and we're a week out and he still hasn't gotten a contract, that tells me that he hasn't really been practicing with the team. He's probably coming into it a little out of shape. And I'm just gonna be like, all right, bro, like, do you really want to risk your pick, your first round pick on a guy that probably still will be fantastic? Do not get me wrong, might have a slow start, and then you just passed on Tyreek Hill, who is I feel a slam dunk pick.
Yep, great points. And so we'll go practicality, right? So if you've got CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill, I think we've already, consensus is Tyreek Hill. So, and I think we could probably also agree, and jump in if I'm wrong, but I think we'd all be skipping on Justin Jefferson. So then the question would be, assuming Tyreek Hill's off the board, you've got CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra, or CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase. Which one you taking?
So it's a tie between CD Lamb and Amon Ra, but I'm still probably going to lean Amon Ra at the end of the day because I think I'll ride with the serial killer. Um, and
Out of
um,
fear, out
a
of
little
fear
bit
of
of both.
retaliation.
Yeah, a little bit of both, but like I just believe in the Detroit's offense. In all honesty, like I'm not really like, and this is not just a Giant fan or just like I hate a Cowboys. Like it's really just like the offense doesn't make me feel like okay, I have to get a piece of this.
Yeah.
So like it's something that I feel like is last year actually repeatable. Can he even get close to the 1,700 yards, where even 1,400 yards what is that team going to look like, and how is it going to come to? Is it going to come in bunches and going to be more of a boom bust? Is it going to be more out of the top 24 games? And that's kind of the volatility you're getting with CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I think I agree. I would probably pick up Amon-Ra before I pick up CeeDee Lamb. Assuming Tyreek Hill is off the board, I think that would be my kind of my 1-2 is Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra, and then it really just depends on what's on the board and kind of where I'm at. But that's where I'm at. What about you, Lauren?
I agree fully. I think CeeDee Lamb has like excitement behind him, but I just, along with like the rest of the country, I don't. The Dallas Cowboys just don't do it for me, and they're never reliable. And I would love to see him on a different team, and I would feel better about having him.
What team?
Obviously, like, huh?
What team?
Well, I'd have to like turn into Matt and like do analytics and I don't know. I think I would just say like a team that, and this may get me canceled because I know there's some Cowboys fans in this league. Just
There's
a
a
team
lot of
that can
Cowboy
do it.
fans.
Yeah, like a team
Chargers.
that can do it. I'm sorry. Like there's so many teams that get that. Even just like if he was on the Lions, they have so much potential and they almost got there last year and it was just they're missing some pieces. But like just any of like the major playoff teams I guess we saw last year. So like the Ravens, I think he would be crazy on. But other than that, yeah. No, I like him. I would definitely go Tyreek Hill over him if you're given the choice between Tyreek. Granted, if you're given probably your 1 or 2 spot in your draft, I would go Tyreek Hill. I think I've been a supporter of Tyreek Hill since he's been on the Chiefs. He's entering his 9th year and he is only getting better.
Yep.
So
And I agree, Matt. I think he would be better fit on the Chargers or even something like the 49ers where they've got an established system. They're just missing the firepower. And when you talk about like Ayuk potentially leaving the 49ers, I think something like that. I don't think it's even being talked about, but putting him in an environment like that where he's just meant to thrive, I think would serve him really well.
Yep. And I think with that, we completed the wide receivers. Wow. It's kind of
we
crazy.
have.
Yeah, and I'll say too, right, is that so we only covered the top 20 because that's the most relevant to the most amount of people. So if there is ever a need for us to continue the conversation, one, we're building out our community on Discord and Facebook and all that stuff, so we can continue it there. But if it gets to a point where we need to do show content, that's good feedback as well, and that we can do all the way down to 30, 40, whatever we need to for the league formats if the demand is there. So if you're interested, let us know. We're just trying to make sure that we get the most information out to the most people that's effective and like useful for their time. So just keep us in the loop if that's something you're interested in, because I know in a 16 team league, the top 20 receivers isn't going to go very long. So you want to get all the research into there about 56 and see if cousin Jose is still playing or not, or maybe they're just finding guys off the corner kind of thing. So yeah, it's good. It's good times, but yeah, it's been a good couple of weeks for us. So I'm happy. I'm excited, and got our receivers done. So what do we got next after this? Anybody left? Kickers,
Uh,
defense? No, I think we're
I think we'd skip those guys.
yeah.
I will.
Kidding.
I'll let you know. I got some ideas. I want to see which one is going to be the next thing. But coming, I guess like a downward stream. Sleepers, breakouts, busts, our picks going into the league's
Yeah.
values, and a whole bunch more that just a matter of what lineup we want to take.
Yep. Yeah, I think there are several ideas floating around out there, and now the league itself is getting heavy into the content, so we can start diving into some of those shenanigans and wait till you guys get to the draft order and who's going first or second and how's that going to be determined. So, this is the fun part, and we've got the content and we've got the team, and I'm excited that we're all here together and we're getting this moving. So, Lauren, you want to close us out?
Yes. um So that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you're following along on all the social medias and sign up on the website. Our social medias go as at Fantasy Turf War on Instagram, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. So Matt, where can people find you, and what do you, or if you would like to shout anything out, please do.
You guys can find me at Matthew underscore on a Twitter, X, wherever you may call it. And you can also find me at Locked On Fantasy Baseball on the IGs, or you just want some other information like fantasy baseball. Check me out at Locked On Fantasy Baseball, wherever you may podcast. And if you have questions, just DM me. I got you. I will help you with your fantasy drafts this season.
And unless you're an Eagles fan, then he's just gonna ignore you.
Yeah,
Yeah, he won't help
the
you.
bar.
He won't.
You can find
Cory,
me.
do you have anything?
So actually, I do have one shout out. It's out to my little brother Cameron Jr. He just found out the day of it we're recording this, but it's not public information until the day this is airing, that he made staff sergeant in the Air Force. So congratulations to him on that promotion, well earned. We're all proud of you, bud. And nerd. You can find me on all the socials at Cory Bassett NC on Twitter, X, Fantasy Turf War, and all the other stuff as well. But it's going to be a fun times for us, and I'm excited.
Awesome. And of course, I'm Lauren Hill, and you can find me at my full name on Instagram, lauren.elizabeth.hill, on Twitter /X, whatever you want to call it, lhill716. And then if you really care so much, you can find me on LinkedIn. But please have at least one mutual connection, or I will deny it. That's freaky. All right. So be excellent to each other, be kind, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Righteous dudes.